Hello there! I'd say it's been a while, but that's something of an understatement. I can't imagine there are many folks still interested in this old channel of mine, but I've made a decision to sweep up some of the dust and make a few more videos for a game that, no matter how hard I try, just won't get its hooks out of me. This video isn't going to be particularly brief. I'd rather go into detail regarding why I'm doing this than just throw you a typical, "Hey, the passion is back" kind of line. For me, stepping away from YouTube was never about passion. More, it was about practicality. But let me take a step back and explain what's been going on. I headed into Legion with no small amount of trepidation, but from a position of relative strength. I had been making videos since late Mists of Pandaria in 2014. I was planning on making a ton of class guides since they were my best and most popular pieces of content, and I was in a pretty good position to do so. But as you probably know, I adore the troll race in World of Warcraft, and I'm a huge story nut. More than you realize. I'll go into more detail about this later on in the video, but this love of mine, alongside the unavoidable circulating spoiler of what was going to happen early on in Legion, meant that my husband and I were bracing ourselves for a gut punch as we started the expansion. When this happened, my love for World of Warcraft took a serious hit. Watching Vol'jin die to be replaced by someone I really disliked killed a lot of my passion for the game. And I'll flat out admit it, I cried like a child when this happened. It wasn't just a sad scene, but it felt fundamentally wrong to me. Maybe I'll make a video explaining why, but that's an old topic. I tried so many times to articulate how I felt about this. I even wrote a script for a video discussing, and complaining about, Vol'jin's character arc and Legion's overall story shortly before I ended up leaving. But I never hit go on that particular video. I wasn't quite able to express how I felt about it without devolving into cruel criticism, and I would much rather be constructive than haphazardly flail my arms around and shout about a character made up of pixels in a dumb video game. In short, Legion started off with a stumble and never really recovered for me. Mechanically, it's by far the best World of Warcraft has ever been, and I rode the joy of those mechanics through Mythic Plus and into Mythic Emerald Nightmare with my guild, Legacy Reborn, making videos and enjoying myself outside of the story. But then as the artifact power grind reached its peak, I stopped. I burnt out. I just had enough. When the Nighthold launched, I had lost my desire to play. That's when I got an email that changed everything. A lovely fellow who will remain anonymous got in touch and said that he saw my videos, particularly my class guides, liked my editing style, and asked if I would be interested in doing freelance work for a startup called Omnislash. Now, I'd received plenty of automated spam emails asking for toxic and parasitic sponsorships in the past, but this wasn't like that. This was a handwritten request to do freelance editing. I've always enjoyed editing. The whole process is really interesting to me. Even before I started making videos on YouTube, I've enjoyed the process of charting and preparing and splicing together content more than I have any other aspect of video making. Even in college, whenever I could, I would edit videos as part of my coursework. My dream job would honestly be editing videos for other content creators, which is exactly what Omnislash wanted me to do. It took some time to get into the rhythm of things, but now I work on several different projects with them as a behind-the-scenes editor, working primarily on Hearthstone stuff. But perhaps more importantly than this, I was offered a competitive salary. Actual money for a thing I love doing. I bring this up because I'd spent my adult life earning next to nothing. I didn't have a job before I immigrated to America, at which point I started working on my YouTube channel while being financially and morally supported by my husband. It was a passion project in so many different ways for me, because even my most successful videos earned me an absolutely tiny amount of dollars. For context, 100,000 views equals about $100. Think about that and then consider the size of my channel. A Patreon account helped a little bit, but compared to my husband with his 9-to-5 job, I was not supporting the family or preparing for the future. Which, as it turned out, was important because a lot of bad things happened over the last year in real life. I'm not going to go into detail, but jeez. Then I get this offer that allowed me to start doing all of those things. I could start buying groceries, getting presents for people I loved, saving money for my future, and buying that sweet Zul'jin skin that makes his hair purple. All by doing something I love doing. It was huge. It changed my life. It gave me a sense of worth that I had been struggling to achieve. It allowed me to prove myself to myself. It made me better at everything I do. The price was this channel. I simply didn't have the time to work on both full-time and be a house husband on the side, and my passion for World of Warcraft was at an all-time low. That's when I made the Changing Things Up video, which was my way of telling you that I was done. With my work no longer having anything to do with World of Warcraft, I could happily cut that aspect of my gaming life away and do something else. And I did. I played other games, including Guild Wars 2, for a long time. But crucially, I also focused heavily on my own story. Now, remember 737 words ago when I said I adore the troll race? Yeah, you have no idea how true that statement is. I probably love them more than you think. This is something I've considered revealing in the past, but I've lacked the courage to do so. So hell, here we go. Time to prove a point. I run a completely private server where, alongside my husband, I tell stories. It's not available online in any kind of way, and it's so heavily customized that it actually doesn't work as a video game. Instead, it's a framework for a dungeon master and a player to tell stories, one-on-one. Aside from my husband, it is the most personal and important aspect of my entire life. The story we chose to tell is about the trolls, exploring characters from the big to the small, to the insignificant to the completely unique, exploring how the tribes of the world would come together into an empire, and all the joy and hatred and peace and violence that would entail, how the gods of the trolls would react to all this, what all of their different stories could be. In short, fanfiction. Does anyone else feel like that's a dirty word? I don't know why. It's really not. It's awesome. Anyway, by this point, our story has diverged so far from canon that it's barely recognizable, and it's, again, hugely personal, but I bring it up to prove the point I made. From running a wiki to tens of thousands of words of story notes to massive spreadsheets of different notes, mechanics, spells, characters, a work-in-progress bestiary, my husband and I have been working on this little project of ours for over 5 years. Why? Because we adore the troll race. And we adore World of Warcraft. This story was my replacement to World of Warcraft's, the one that I had just been burned by. I've seen plenty of other people who truly, deeply care for this game, have similar reactions. This was just my own way of handling it. Now, there are plenty of ways to criticize this way of thinking. It's just a stupid video game, the story doesn't really matter, you're just a gay asshole who can't handle things changing, get a life, etc, etc. If you can think it, I've probably already considered it. But let's take a step back, because this is getting pretty thick. I would talk about real-life stuff instead, but most of that has involved people dying and politics. Back to video games. Let's just agree that I care a hell of a lot about the world, lore, and story of World of Warcraft. I had stepped away, but I was continuing to write fanfiction, was repeatedly checking MMO Champion and Wowhead, mostly out of habit. I followed the story of 7.2 and 7.3 pretty closely. I subscribed to Taliesin and Evertel because they're amazing and you need to do so as well, do it right now. And I sat in restaurants with my husband bitching about how the story could be different and what it needed to do. Essentially, I was in that kind of grey area between not playing World of Warcraft and still kind of being in love with it. And as BlizzCon approached, my husband and I grudgingly decided to buy a virtual ticket and have it on in the background over the weekend. We had very low expectations of the whole affair. We knew an expansion was coming and agreed that in order for World of Warcraft to even have a chance of winning us over again, the trolls needed some love. We had just finished telling a story where we reimagined Zuldazar, homeland of the Zandalari trolls, and told a story about them and their king, Rastakhan. So in order for World of Warcraft to have a chance, the Zandalari trolls, some of the coolest and most mysterious characters in the whole game, needed to be playable and not be generic bad guys like they were in the Throne of Thunder. That would never happen, right?
Of an ancient empire.
Oh. Son of a... This was the moment, right here, when we freaked out. I have never, ever had a reaction to an expansion announcement that was this joyful and emotional. We both cried. I watched my husband, one of the most stoic people I know, sob and jump around and talk so excitedly he forgot to pause for breath. Why? Because we cared. We cared so damn much. Which, saying it out loud now seems kind of stupid. But anyway, see the whole writing our own story about the characters we love thing for proof of that. Words that we never thought we'd hear spoken by developers, Zuldazar, Rastakhan, Bonsumdi, Zandalari, Loa, Vol'jin, were being spoken to the BlizzCon audience. We freaked out, and we were glued to our screen for hours. They cared about the same things we did. The passion that won us over individually all those years ago and kept us playing for years further was still there. World of Warcraft had, in the span of about 2 minutes, won us over. Then we stopped for some air and a sinking feeling began to form. The pessimists inside poked their heads out and asked a simple question. How are they going to screw the trolls up? Now, I want to point out that this is a deeply cynical, ill-conceived, and frankly, selfish question to ask. This story is not ours. I want to just say that. I am aware of this. We aren't the writers, we're not even writers in general, and we can't see past what has been released, unlike the actual writers. But this question was asked anyway, because Legion's story was so antithetical to our own perception of World of Warcraft's story. Ever since then, I've been mulling this question over and over in my head, trying to figure out how I feel about all this and whether or not this actually will be enough to get me back into World of Warcraft. Then over the Christmas period, I got a letter from Arethlia. I'd gotten one the previous year too, a little thank you note with some chocolate for contributing to the community. A community that I hadn't contributed to for months. And damn it if it didn't melt my heart. So, I've done it. I've reached my conclusion. And that conclusion is that it doesn't matter whether or not this will be enough. What matters are those stupid, irrelevant bundles of pixels on the screen. The characters, the story, the quests, the lore, Xander freaking La. I care about these things, and regardless of my own perceptions of the story, I want the Zandalari to be awesome. So that's my goal. When the Battle for Azeroth Alpha begins, I'm going to go through it with the finest comb I have and examine everything troll-related, and offer as much constructive feedback as I possibly can. In essence, it's going to be a lot of discussion videos. I'm going to stare at buildings, discuss major characters, point out where trolls don't have accents, because getting those right is very hard at times, believe me. I'm going to try and highlight inconsistencies and praise as much as I possibly can. I don't want this to be, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, because all games are inherently good, and I really, really want this to go well and for it to be a positive thing. My current plan, then, is to stream as much of this as I can, to gather thoughts, footage, and keep myself motivated, basically. Then I'll make videos discussing anything and everything I can find a reason to talk about. This isn't a promise, let me just start there. I know I have a history of saying, I promise to do this! And then real life just kind of says, no. This is just an idea. I'm not going back into YouTube. These videos won't be guides, previews, or anything remotely related to what I used to make. The closest thing this is going to be related to is that old video I made where I talked about troll lore. These videos are also not going to be monetized either. As I said, I don't have the time to focus on YouTube full-time and also work as an editor. I don't care how many views these videos get, as long as the content itself is positive, constructive, and useful. This is a passion project, about something I will never ever have the chance to do again. I'll do my damnedest to make sure that the vision of Zandalar, no matter what that vision is, whether the Zandalari are badass warriors, scholars, breakdancing singers, or turn into gnomes every full moon, I'll just try and help make it the best it can possibly be. And hearing it now does sound a bit pretentious. I really, honestly don't mean to sound that way. But this is something I really care about. And I want to help. But I would be lying if I said this was a purely selfless project. I kinda need this. After all this shit that's happened in real life, both in my personal life and in the wider world, I need another passion project to just dive into, to dedicate myself to bring some joy and positivity in a space and a platform that feels like it's growing more and more negative by the day. Because I personally need more of that. So that's my little story, my goal, and admittance for something I probably should have revealed a long time ago. If you're still here after all that, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you soon, and it feels good to say it again. I wish you the best of luck in the World of Warcraft.